Okay, now what you can see in front of you is, in front of you I have 4 different types of fasteners that I use. I have a conventional bolt that I use, nut and bolt. I have a nut and bolt combination that uses a Phillips head screwdriver to tighten. I have another fastener that uses a straight blade screwdriver to tighten. Okay, and then the other one I have is one that uses it's a countersunk bolt that you can countersink that also uses a Phillips head screwdriver to tighten. And these are the different wrenches that we're going to use to tighten these up. I'm going to show you how each one of these works. We're going to go ahead and start out with we'll start out with the small ones first, and then I'll work my way up to the large ones to show you. Okay, now the first one that we're going to start with is, if you watch my videos, you're going to notice that some of the projects and things I have a lot of different bolts and things to hold them together. Now this is the first one we're going to talk about. This is one of the smaller bolts that I have. I'm going to go and show you what it looks like. Okay. This is one of the smaller bolts that I use. Now this is a coarse thread. This is just a standard bolt you can get at the hardware store. Now you're going to notice that it has a Phillips head attachment point on it where you use to tighten it. This is where you actually tighten it up with a Phillips head. What you do is use a Phillips head to tighten it up. Then it has a nut like this on the end of it that goes on the end like this. Okay? That's how it holds itself together. It uses a nut on the end and then a bolt on the end. And the way you would tighten it is you would use a Phillips head screwdriver on one end and then a box end or a socket on the other end, and this is how you would tighten it. Just like that. That's how you would tighten this if you were using this combination. Now, a good example of the material that I would use for that, I'm going to give you an example of what I would use it for. If you watch my arcade machine videos on my channel, you're going to notice that like the marquee glasses and things have molding and things that holds the glass in place. That's where these would come in handy. Basically, I would have 2 pieces of metal that I would join together like this. And then I would put this in the middle. Like that, put this on the ends. Okay, let me put this on the end for you. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, put that on the end like that, and that would be used to hold 2 pieces of metal together like this. Okay, so we'd have a Phillips head on here and then a socket on the other, and then you would basically do it like this. You would put your screwdriver in here, your Phillips head screwdriver in here, then your wrench would go on the other side, and that would hold this together. Okay, now that's a smaller piece, okay? Now, let me show you the next type of fastener that we would use. We have a beautiful day today in the workshop, by the way, too. It's been a gorgeous day today. Okay, now the next one will be used to hold these together as well. Now the difference with this one is, it looks the same as the first one that we showed, but what difference is, this uses a straight blade end on the end of it. As you can see, there's a straight blade. Okay, this would be used with a straight blade screwdriver like I have here. Okay, it would do the same thing that the one I showed you that did. It has a wrench on one side to hold it, to hold the nut, and then a conventional screwdriver, straight blade screwdriver to tighten it up. Now, one of the advantages is, if you use a straight blade screwdriver, okay, if you're using a Phillips head like this, one of the advantages of having a Phillips head is you have more contact surface with the screw bolt when you use a Phillips head versus a straight blade. So that's one of the reasons why I use these in addition to the ones that I currently have. This is a little stronger when you go to unloosen it. It gives you a little bit better grip when you use a Phillips head versus a straight blade, but they both basically do the same thing. Okay, just remember when you're holding two pieces of material together, this will go on one side, come out the other, and it would be secured with a nut on the other end. Okay, I'm going to show you here. Okay, and that would be used to hold your 2 ends together, just like this, to hold 2 pieces together. Okay, now the next fastener I'm going to show you is very similar to the one that I showed you before, but there's one difference with the next one. Okay, it's over here. Now the next one I'm going to show you looks very similar to the other two. Okay. Now it's got a nut on the end of it like the other one did, but one of the differences you're going to notice, it is a Phillips head. It uses a Phillips head just like the one I showed you earlier. It uses a Phillips head, and it uses a wrench or a socket to hold the end of it when as you're tightening it. But the difference is, if you look on this, you're going to notice that this is beveled. If you can see here, there's a little bevel. If you look on the end here, you're going to notice that there's a little bevel. It looks like almost like a cone on the end of it. This is designed if you want to countersink this into your wood or whatever you're using. This is designed to countersink it so it will stay flat. As you can see, it's beveled so you can countersink it to make it flat on top. That's why they have this bevel here, is so you can actually countersink this. Now I'm going to show you where that would come in handy. If you had a situation like this where you had to attach a piece of metal to a surface and you wanted to make sure it was flat, for example, if you have a bracket and you have a table and you want to make sure it's flat, then you would put the bracket underneath, and what this beveled edge would do is, if you can imagine this being the top of your table, this is the top of your table. This beveled edge basically will go into the product, and what it will do then is it actually will sink down in the product and keep the top of this level. That's where this countersink would come in handy. It gives you a little easier if you want to countersink it, having a head like this versus trying to sink a counter head like this. If you have a bolt that has a head like this, in order to get this to countersink into the material, you would almost have to do what I did here with this piece right here. You'd almost have to pre-drill, countersink a hole ahead of time to allow this to stay flat, as you can see here in the picture. See how that's flat there with the surface? By putting this in here like this, and that's going to keep this flat here, so that way you can have a table on top and it'll be flat without any imperfections on top. That's if you countersink it. That's if you're using a conventional head like this. If you use one of these bolts like I just showed you, one of these right here, this one you can actually put in here, and then you can actually screw this down enough where it actually will be flat with the material and countersink it using that bevel cone that I just showed you. Okay, they both work really well, but you can see they're different types of fasteners. Okay. Now the third type of fastener I'm going to show you, the fourth type of fastener I'm going to show you is what I use for all my heavy-duty projects that I build. For example, like when I hold my pinball machines and things together, if you watch the pinball video, watch the video on the skeletal pinball machine that I have. Let me put everybody back here. Okay. Now, if you watch the video I have on my skeletal pinball machine, or you watch my LGB Skyway Trainway video, this is the bolt of choice for holding those together. Now, this is a much heavier bolt that's designed to hold heavier projects together. Now, you're going to see this actually uses a bolt head that actually uses a socket driver. So you would actually have a socket driver like this that actually goes on the end and holds it together. Okay. Now, on the end of that, you would also have a nut, just like the other one that uses a wrench like this here. But the difference with this is if you look at the size of those, you can see how thick the threads are in this one, and then look at how thick the threads are in this one. You're going to see there's a big difference. The thickness is much thicker on these than it is on these, so that's something to keep in mind when you're using these. Okay. Now this would be used if you're holding heavy-duty projects together, like metal and things like that. If you watch my video on the Skyway layout, or like I said, the skeletal pinball layout, you're going to notice that I uses heavy-duty pieces of brackets just like these to hold those together. That is where, if you're holding these together, that's where these big bolts would come in handy. They would be used if you're holding heavy-duty pieces of metal together like this. Okay, as you can see, that's what would be used to hold heavier pieces of metal together like these that you might need to do. Okay, so this just gave you an example of showing you 4 different types of fasteners and things that I use in my workshop. Now, keep in mind that depending on your application, there are many other types. There's many other types of fasteners that you also can buy depending on the project that you're using. But these 4 that I showed you here, okay, we have the heavy-duty bolt that's used for the big projects. We have the bolt that can be used to countersink with the Phillips head on it. We have the Phillips head bolt that has the fastener on the end of it for Phillips heads. Then we have the straight blade fastener we have that uses a straight blade screwdriver. These are just 4 examples of ones that you can use. Now, like I said, there's many other ones that you can get as well at the hardware store too, depending on the project that you're building. This just gives you an idea of the sort of things that I keep in my workshop when I build my projects. Now, the one thing to keep in mind too is these fasteners and things like that too. You know, you can get these in different grades of material. Somebody told me you can get these in regular steel. You can also get them in stainless steel as well. Now, when I build control panels, I'll use a bolt very similar to this, but it'll be a stainless steel bolt. Now, stainless steel will cost more, but if you have areas where you're going to have a lot of moisture things, stainless steel is a really good way to go. And also, one thing I really like about these too is, if you have to paint these, like if you're building a project where they have to be painted, I find that the Krylon and things also sticks fairly well to these bolts and things as well when I go to paint a project. Okay, so I hope this video was helpful in showing you different ways you could fasten things you can use to hold your projects together. And as always, I want to thank you for visiting the Kurt's Place channel here on YouTube.